I shouldn't have to say this because this is, with the Commanders and the Eagles, the fifth time in playoffs since divisional realignment in 2002. This will be the fifth conference championship matchup between divisional opponents, Eagles and Commanders. Anybody that's out there wondering, how often does this happen? Well, the last time it happened was when the Rams beat the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl. It is the first time, however, it's happened in the NFC East. So here we go. So I don't think the Commanders need this advice, but I'll give it anyway. When you play the Eagles, there's a guy who runs the ball for them at the running back position. Got to make the distinction because, the quarterback can run it in from 44 yards out to start the game like Jalen Hurts did on Sunday before the snows came against the Rams. But stop Saquon Barkley. That would be the first order of business. This guy, man. Nightmare fuel. And the Rams lost the last game that Matthew Stafford started, the last time they had, before Sunday, that they had lost, a game that Matthew Stafford started. It was a game where Saquon ran all over them for 255 yards, 300 from scrimmage on the Sunday night in Los Angeles, with the Eagles fans going so crazy that Jared First came out this week and said, I hate them. At least he backed it up, right, though, with his play? As most of the Rams did, many of the Rams did, with the city of Los Angeles still on fire, rooting for their team in ice, to use the Game of Thrones phrase. But Saquon Barkley did it to them again. 205 rush yards. So they stopped him 50 fewer yards.
Kept him in check.
26 rushes and 2 touchdowns. And he's the first player in Eagles playoff history with 200 or more rushing yards and 2 or more rushing touchdowns in a single game. Sixth player to do it all time in the history of the NFL. He surpassed Hall of Famer Steve Van Buren in those categories. Here's the stat, though. Here's the stat. That in terms of including playoffs in a single season. This stat kind of says it all. We put it on a board here. Saquon Barkley had 6 rushing touchdowns of 60 or more yards this season. That's an all-time mark.
Wow.
6 better than Saquon Barkley against the Rams. 2 better than Saquon against the Rams, 2 better than Adrian Peterson, and 2 better than Jim Brown. So in terms of, again, by the way, great headline on this board by Sean Mitchell, I ran Barkley. Most rushing touchdowns of 60 or more yards in a single season, including the playoffs. Saquon Barkley tops the list with 6, 2 better than Adrian Peterson in 2012, Jim Brown in 1963, and Saquon against the Rams, period. How silly is that? Here's another stat that basically tells you about how you got to stop Saquon and Jalen Hurts as well, okay? Because Jalen had 44 yards on a single gain to start the scoring. And then Saquon popped a rushing touchdown of 62 yards to put the Eagles back up because they missed an extra point on the Jalen Hurts touchdown. And then the 78-yarder that put them up 2 scores. And yes, just enough to avoid the Matthew Stafford moment of the ages that was unfolding in front of everybody. So that 78-yarder did salt the game in the snow, but we didn't know it at the time it was necessary with 4.5 to go. That 78-yard rushing touchdown, the longest rushing touchdown in Eagles playoff history and the longest rushing touchdown in a playoff game all time. That's tied for 5th there in that department. The Eagles, though, this is the stat, and this is why Saquon is the difference maker. This is why he's the MVP of the team. And, if they waited to give the MVP award and made it a full season award, available to those playoff performances to sway the vote. The Eagles gained 184 yards on their 3 touchdowns and 166 yards in their other 58 offensive plays. The big game moment with the big strike moment together is how you can also win playoff games. They also won the turnover battle. The Eagles' defense was superb because the person who sealed the deal was Jalen Carter when the Rams' offensive line, essentially, to be point blank, seemed to forget to block him on the two most important snaps of the game, the final ones. And yes, with Quinyon Mitchell out and Nakobe Dean out, they found the right people to make the right plays at the right time. And the Rams were the ones who turned it over. And Nick Sirianni watched as Kellen Moore made a wild play call in their final possession of the game where they could salt it away just by getting one more first down. Instead of handing it to Barkley, they kept it in Hurts's hands, and he just took a sack. I don't know what the hell that was.
They were trying to win.
And that was essentially giving the Rams the ball back and setting the stage for another Matthew Stafford moment of the ages. But the person who can come into the fray and overcome all of that is Saquon Barkley, who just is a perfect Philadelphia Eagle. In the same way that we were talking about Derrick Henry fitting hand in glove into the Ravens offense, into their organization and mantra, this guy is exactly what the Eagles needed and are using to advance in the playoffs. And he's just a perfect guy to have in front of the microphones after.
Whether it's national spotlight or it's Saturday on the parking lot, it don't really matter. I just want to make the plays for the team. And before that, I just kind of kept telling myself, just locking in, being focused. And O-line did a really good job. And I was able to set stuff up my shoulders and pop two big ones. So it was good.
We talked a lot about this week, that famous snow game. How much did the atmosphere definitely live up for it?
Crazy, man. I mean, it was insane. Got a smile on my face thinking about it. Like, this is what you dream about. This is why I came to Philly. I wanted to be a part of games like this, and I'm just happy to be able to be a part of it.
That's why I came to Philly, and I'm just sitting there. I was wondering. I don't know if you guys were too. I'm sorry to do this, and it happens, and they need to get ready for it if he makes the Super Bowl. I was just sitting watching. Where was John Mara watching?
Oh yeah, I was thinking about that. When was the last time you think you had a good night's sleep? I know they've been kind of poking fun about it, but he said it in the Hard Knocks. Like, how can you watch that and be like, dude?
How do the Giants sit there and get through the day when this guy is coming up so big in the biggest moments for their biggest rival geographically? They're right down the turnpike. And he runs one in the snow. They're going to be talking about this forever. The staging of it was monster in terms of the time and the distance that he ran and the moment in the game, and the snow's coming down. He's slamming his head because he knows that he's scoring. And then the fans just go singing "Fly, Eagles, Fly," which to Eagles fans is the greatest song ever, and to everyone else, certainly up the turnpike, it is nails on a friggin' chalkboard. And these people are as happy as they've maybe ever been watching a football game, and the Giants let it happen. I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, but the Eagles are in the NFC Championship Game against the Washington Commanders. And no matter how many times people, you might be direct messaging me these videos on Instagram, whatever, of Joe Shane's kids saying, trade up for Jaden Daniels. There's no way the Commanders were going to be. There's not. I mean, they could have offered the entire Mike Ditka draft trade. They weren't turning away from Jaden Daniels. Weren't going to do it. But the Eagles are in it against the Commanders, and Saquon Barkley may be the one who's the difference maker over the Commanders' difference maker. And he could be sending the Eagles back to the Superdome, to the place where the Eagles' first Super Bowl appearance ever happened. That was where Vermeil and Ron Jaworski went at it with the Raiders. They can go back to the future and win their second championship. And that, hey, if they see the Chiefs, guess what? It's not going to come down to a defensive hold because Saquon's going to take it to the house from 70 yards out.
It certainly feels that way. It feels like every time he touches the ball, I'm just expecting. I kind of felt that way with Derrick Henry last night in the second half. Get this guy the ball, gone, home run, possibly every single play.
Right. He's and I don't mean to. I'm not denigrating anyone else. I really am not. Would DeAndre Swift have done it? You know, what if they were like, hey, we're all in. Kenneth Gainwell's our guy. Let DeAndre Swift walk. We're just not. We do not spend money on the free agent. What if they took the approach of we don't need our $45, $50 million a year quarterback handing off to a $15 million running back? That's not what we do here. What if that happened? Would the Rams have won? Maybe twice against the Eagles? Seriously. I guess I'm prepping it. Because if the Eagles go to the Super Bowl and win it all, certainly Saquon might be the MVP of the whole damn thing. And he might wind up with the record for most rushing yards in a single season. Terrell Davis is only in front of Saquon now by 2 yards for the second most. All he's got to do is get 3 yards against the Commanders. He's got the second most rushing yards in the history of an NFL season, including the playoffs. By the way, in the same number of games as Terrell Davis. Because don't forget, Saquon sat out the last game of the regular season.
Right.
So there's no asterisk here. Well, you played 17 regular season games. Terrell didn't. The same number of games as TD. Same number. And all he's got to do is get over 148 yards against the Commanders, and he's the most ever in the same number of games as Terrell Davis. That's who the Eagles added to their offense. And if they see the Chiefs in the Superdome and beat them, it'll be like, who cares about defensive holding? We got this guy.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.